Okay, get ready for this.
Amberly Lago in an intimate conversation.
I never shared this with anybody else on any other podcast before, actually. This is the first time I've ever shared this.
Raw, real,
and I'm getting emotional. But my husband loved me enough to where I could start to love myself.
and unfiltered.
I think sometimes we all need help. And the key is to not do it alone.
It's the one intentional living you can't afford to miss.
Okay.
Yes.
Sometimes I forget that we're doing an interview and I just feel like we're talking. You know, that's probably why I started crying.
On an all-new Intentional Living with Courtney Myers. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Myers, a podcast dedicated to those seeking a more fulfilled and purposeful life through thought-provoking conversation, spiritual exploration, and authentic connections. The intentional movement has begun, and if you found yourself here, you are a part of it. Intentional Living with Courtney Myers starts now. Hi, Amberly. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Myers. I am so excited and honored to get to talk to you today. Thank you for joining me.
Courtney, thank you. Thank you for having me here. Are you kidding me? I've been looking so forward to getting this time with you, to get to connect with you, and to get to share with your audience. So thank you so much.
Of course. No, it's just such an honor because I know you've been through a lot in your life and now you are talking on such a big level about some of these things that are near and dear to my heart. It's like, overcoming these obstacles and finding that resilience within ourselves to really show up as who we want to. But I do think there is a tendency for a lot of us to go into this victimhood in our lives and want to blame our circumstances or blame what we're going through on something that happened to us, as opposed to something that happened for us. And you had something really tragic happen to you. You overcame a very big obstacle in having an accident, kind of losing everything, all the surgeries, everything. And I don't even think you would say you're completely healed because you still deal with the effects of it every day. But you've turned that around and you've made it a purpose. And I think that is so beautiful. So how do we do that?
Well, thank you for saying that. It's interesting that you say that because my husband will tell me, he's like, Amberly, you don't have to do so much. You don't have to work so hard. You don't have to do so much. But you know what? If I didn't do what I do now, it turns the pain that I have to purpose. Mm-hmm. And it really does. And I told my husband, I said, I could sit there with my leg propped up on the coffee table and stare at how much pain I'm in. And honestly, right now, I'm in a lot of pain right now. But if I can focus on how can I serve others, then that gives my pain purpose. And so I think with all that I've been through, how I can serve others has really helped me get through a lot. And I'm not saying that I didn't plan on doing that as like a selfish thing. Like I'm just going to serve these other people because selfishly it helps me. But let me tell you, even when I was stuck in the hospital bed, going through 34 surgeries to save my leg from amputation, I had a chair next to my bed where the nurses would sit down and they would talk to me and I would give them advice and I could be of service. And that helped me. I was still giving advice to, clients with nutrition and exercise plans. And that helped me get through. So I think that no matter what you're going through, if you remember your why and you try to do whatever you can to be of service to others, it's going to help you get through.
Well, does that service, it sounds like that service gives you purpose.
Well, yeah, I think that we need to be of service. For me, I think that to have a purpose really helps me get through the most challenging times of my life. And so I know that this is something I haven't shared with a lot of people. But when I first came out of a coma after my motorcycle accident, I asked for my phone, my flip phone. It was a BlackBerry at the time. And back then I asked for my phone, and I was calling clients, and I was saying, hey, I might be in ICU right now, but let me tell you, third quarter, we're going to get out of here. I'm going to be out of here. We're going to finish strong. We're going to finish strong. I remember my husband saying, give me your phone. Give me your phone. And I was like, no, I need my phone, because saving my business was just as important as saving my leg, which might sound kind of crazy, but if you're an entrepreneur, it might not sound so crazy. But that's what I did. I was contacting my clients. And even in the hospital, I was in the hospital the first time, the first like 3.5 months. I was constantly on the phone with clients. I was still doing exercise plans, nutritional plans, connecting other, I had several trainers that worked with me, and I was making sure that their clients were aligned with them and they were going on the right path. And so I think it's really important to get out of any situation where you feel like you're struggling or you're having a hard time, to find a purpose. Now, that purpose for some people that might be like, oh, well, I didn't have a business, or I don't know what to do. Well, your purpose might be to, did you plant a tomato plant that needs to be watered and you need to make sure it grows? Do you have a pet that you need to wake up and make sure that that pet needs to be fed and you need to give it some water? Like, you need to find something to do. And I say that because it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy for me. It's hard sometimes. And so sometimes it's hard for me to wake up and go, okay, these are the things that I want to do, I need to do. And when I'm in so much pain, sometimes it's hard, but I know when I do them, it gives the pain purpose. But I also know that, like, when I was at my lowest point, that having plants and having a puppy, and I say that because I never shared this with anybody else on any other podcast before, actually. This is the first time I've ever shared this. Having that puppy got me through. Just knowing that that dog needed me to get up and feed it. And we need purpose. We need something that we can go, okay, so whether that is a job or an animal or a plant or whatever, we need something that, okay, this is our purpose. We have to get up because we're responsible for helping that person or that thing or that whatever it is to survive and thrive.
Well, it almost sounds like when you're talking about this, purpose is connection. We need that connection to something else, whether that's that connection to ourself, whether that's a connection to a pet, whether that's a connection to a business. I mean, even you saying that, my dog just jumped off the couch and shook a little bit right over there, right when you're talking about that. She gave me purpose when I needed love so bad. And I was so desperate for it. And in a time when I was really low, that's when I got her. And I remember saying to my mom and sister, who they didn't like that I said this, but I was honest about it. I said, if it wasn't for her, I don't know that I would be here right now, because she gave me that meaning. And just the same thing. And just the same thing, I'm thinking about my grandma. My grandma's the same way. She has her dog. We just lost my grandfather this past year.
I'm so
Her
sorry.
purpose is in their dog, is in their puppy. And it's what gets her up out of bed. It's what gets her moving. She's had now 2 knee replacements. She doesn't want to move, but she has to move because of that dog. So if we're lacking purpose, if we're lacking that self, what do we need to do with our life? It can be as simple as something like a pet or a plant that's just, I don't know if it's a responsibility or a connection, but something to give us that meaning that, okay, let's get out of bed and let's move ourselves.
Courtney, you said something very important. You said connection. And that's what it is. That's what it is. I think that's what we need more of. Like, we need that more than ever. We need connection. For so long, I thought, well, I can just grit it out. I can work harder. And I mean, how many of us, like, if we're an entrepreneur especially, we're like, well, if I can just work harder, if I can just post more, if I can just do more, if I can just be more, if I can do all things more, then I'll be successful. But that's not what it is. That's not where you're going to find success. Where you are going to find success is through connection. And people ask me this all the time. People ask me all the time. They're like, oh my gosh, Amberly, how are you getting invited on all these big stages that you're going on to? It's not that it's not that I'm like great on social media or any of that. It's connection. And I'm like, it is the power of connection. And that's a thing that when you're listening to this, and if there's anything you can get from this message in our talk the most, don't do it alone. Ask for help. And I know for me, like as an entrepreneur, sometimes I'm in my little office here and I can be in a little bubble of, I feel all alone in this office. I have to go out and connect. And that's one of the reasons, like, I have my mastermind, because other female entrepreneurs, I'm like, no, you're not in it alone. We got to do this together. And so I'm very, very passionate about sharing. Like, don't do it alone, because I did that, and it led me down a road of despair. And so I don't want people to think that they have to do it alone. So that's why I'm like, connect with Courtney, connect with a group of entrepreneurs. Don't do it alone.
But when it comes to connection, we also have to work on that genuine connection, I feel like. And that's why you're getting invited on those stages. That's why you're getting invited to speak, is because it's not this connection like, there's so much superficial connection out there, we can post, we can connect, we can answer that DM, we can answer that email, but it's more of that connection of that vulnerability, like you sharing that story with me or me sharing my story with you. It's like all of a sudden we're connected on a different level. We're not just connected because we're talking to each other. We're connected because we've had a shared experience. And I think that connection comes with a vulnerability. And I talk about that a lot in my work, is getting to that place of being vulnerable so that we can make a real connection. And I think that's what you do by sharing your story and by sharing these things with us, is you're allowing us to see a part of you, which in turn allows us to feel safe to connect with you.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I think that, what, I want to be connected with people who are real. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, just be real with me. You know what I mean? And I have to say, like, I know it's hard sometimes on social media. You see things that is like, oh my gosh, everything's so perfect and it's so beautiful and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, I think the reason that I have people that connect with me on social media is because I share the raw, real, like, hey, this is tough. This is hard. Hey, this is what's good that just happened. But I share what's raw, real, and I think that we all want to connect with authenticity, like people that are just just real. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, it's hard, honestly. I'm going to tell you right now. I just sent a message to my videographer or my web designer.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, it's so hard. I was like, it's so hard for me because I'm, trying to sell these tickets to my event in April. And I was like, I don't like having to like sell tickets, like post things where I'm like, buy a ticket to this event or whatever. Like, it's really hard for me. I don't know why. I don't know if you've ever had to do anything like that.
Yes.
Oh my God. It's so, so, so hard for me. And I was like, I don't know. Cause even when I was promoting my book, I did things for a year before I ever even said, hey, by the way, buy my book.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but now I'm just like, oh my gosh, now I'm promoting this event for people to come to this event. And so in between, I'm just keeping it real and being like, you know what? Life isn't always great. And I'm making the best of it. Like sometimes it sucks. And this is what I'm doing to make the best of it. But I don't know if you've ever been in that situation. Any advice you have for that, I
Well,
would
I mean,
greatly appreciate.
I have definitely been in that situation. I've spent 20 years of my life in television selling, literally, like crafting the perfect message for a show. Promos, commercials, trailers, you name it, I've done it. Sales tapes to get these shows. I've
You're
launched so many
kidding.
different. Yes, that's where my background is. And so, like,
But you look like you're 18. How is that
well,
possible?
well, thank
I
you. I am
swear to
40.
God. I swear to
40.
God. Like, what?
If you could see closer, you'd see the grays coming in, and I'm like, is my lighting covering my wrinkles? Because I haven't had Botox in years. But yes, no. But I spent a long time doing that. And what I realize is I know why you're struggling with the selling of it all is because it's not you. It doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel
It
organic.
doesn't feel like me at all. Yeah.
And it never lands. Whenever selling a show into getting any sort of viewership, and I've launched a lot of shows. I've launched a lot of top shows into the marketplace. And there's so many eyes on it, and there's so many people that the messaging always gets distilled down. You lose that essence, you lose that authenticity, is what you're talking about. And the only way something lands and really works is if it is true to the show, to the message, to the person. But when so many different hands get into it, or when you start thinking of it as I'm selling this, or I need to do this because everyone else is doing it, it's not going to land, and you're going to feel icky doing it. I've spent a lot of time
Okay.
feeling icky doing it. Where I got my Emmy nomination was because I was working with Ellen on an episode that was all about emotion and real. I literally produced a promo that allowed just a moment to play. It was a series of moments that we allowed to play. I didn't overproduce it. I didn't over dramatize it. I didn't add anything to it. And that's where I think we go, is we lose our authenticity. And that's across the board, whether that's how we're showing up on social media, how we're showing up as ourselves, how you're showing up on stage. You succeed on stage because you're authentic. That sells.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I feel like this is a really good coaching session for me. I swear, this is a very good coaching session for me. Because you know what? Honestly, like there are times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this person has just hired me to speak on their stage. I'm not kidding you.
Yeah.
I'm like, I am blown away at these opportunities that I get to speak on this person's stage. But the thing is you're right. I connect with an audience because of the authenticity. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm the real deal. This is what you get. So yeah, I think just talking to you, I forget we're on an interview and I feel like we're on a conversation. and I needed your advice. So thank you for that. Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry.
Of
Thank you for
course.
that. You're amazing.
No,
Thank you for
thank
that.
you. No, I love it. But that's what I love about this show is that we don't know where we're going to go. It might be a message that you need to hear. It might be a message I need to hear. It might be a message that our listeners need to hear. We
It
don't
might be
know.
advice. It might be advice that your guest really needs, and they need to hire you to consult them. So thank you.
Oh my goodness. But of course, I love it. No, but I mean, look at that, everyone. Amberly Lago endorsed me. I feel like I need to make a promo out of this. But the reality is, it's like we all have that though. Like you said in that imposter syndrome thing, you know, I felt that today before we got on the call. I'm like, oh my goodness, I get to talk to you today. I actually just had a conversation with someone else about that. You know, we do. We like downplay our own strengths and who we are, and as opposed to just like saying this is who we are and I'm worthy with who we are.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, for sure. Like honestly, so I was just talking to my husband yesterday, and I'm interviewing a Navy SEAL who's going to be on my podcast, who he was shot 8 times, and he's got 2 New York Times best-selling books and blah, blah. And I was telling my husband, I was like, oh my God, I'm interviewing this person, and he's done this, and he's got 2 books and blah, blah, blah. And my husband was like, I don't know what you're talking about. He was like, you've overcome just as much. Like you've overcome 34 surgeries. He was like, I don't know why you're putting him on this pedestal and you're freaking out about him and blah blah blah. And my husband was like really kind of like gave it to me straight, like, Amberly, you have done as much as he has. Even though you haven't been through SEAL training, you went through 34 surgeries, you went through hell and back. Like, why are you putting him way above yourself? Like, you know what I mean? And so my husband kind of like really shifted my perspective with that. And I don't mean to put anybody above me or below me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there are some times when, I don't know about you, but like for me, when I'm going to interview somebody, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so amazing. Like, oh, I gotta like, I'm preparing for weeks and I've read their book and I've done this and I've done that. But he's like, dude, they're just a person. Like,
Yeah.
just talk to them, you know? And I'm like, you know what? You're right.
Yeah, I think it's remembering who we are and just coming back to like our deserve level. I feel like, you know, we talk ourselves out of these situations. I mean, and we beat ourselves. I have that same conversation with my husband all the time. I mean, how great is it that we both have husbands that are cheerleaders? Because all the time,
Really?
and he'll be like, "Look at your
really."
Yeah, he'll like read back to me my resume, and I'm like, not a big deal. And he's like, look what you've done with your life. And you know, we don't see ourselves. We don't love on ourselves. We don't give ourselves that grace. I mean, to really show up who we are. And we put people on pedestals in a way that like doesn't mean they don't deserve and they haven't done something great, but it doesn't mean that we have to diminish our light.
You're right. And you know what? It's so interesting because I have one of my clients, actually, she's a freaking big time producer at Sony.
Yeah.
And I remember I had worked with her for years before I knew exactly what she did. And she wanted me to review her resume one day. And I was like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Yeah, let me help you edit that or whatever. And then her resume was in the back of my car, and my daughter got in the back of my car and she read the resume. She goes, oh my gosh. She goes, is this Debbie? This is Debbie? Like, this is what she does. This, what? Like, you know what I mean? And so it was like, I know her. I didn't think about her as anyone else other than that this is what I'm going to help you do. I don't know, it was more of a physical training program. She didn't really tell me what she did. My daughter knew her for years before she knew that she was a badass, producer at Sony. But then I still have to remind her. I was like, Debbie, do you know? Do you remember who you are? Like who you are as a person, but also do you know your job title? Like, can I share your resume with you again? Because you're a badass. You know what I mean? So I think sometimes we need people to believe in us before we can believe in ourselves. And I think sometimes we need people to love us before we can love ourselves.
Really? Because I've had this talk. This must be something that's in the air right now, because I've had this talk this week a couple of times about self-love, how that we need to learn to love ourselves before we can actually be truly loved. But what we're talking about now is that we're also glorifying our accomplishments as opposed to who we are as a person. So it's like this weird balance. Like, I believe like we want that self-worth. We want that recognition for what we're doing so that we can feel worthy as a person. But it's like, what comes first? Do we love and glorify ourselves, or vice versa?
I don't think that any accomplishments like that are ever going to matter unless you love yourself. Period. Like, it's not going to matter. It doesn't matter what kind of achievements that you make unless you love yourself first. None of that matters because it doesn't count.
Yeah.
But I will say that, look, I completely lost love for myself. I hated myself. I wanted to die. The only reason I'm here is because I thought about my daughters and I prayed to God to keep me hanging on. And I'm getting emotional. But my husband loved me enough to where I could start to love myself. My doctor, I hated my leg. I went into my doctor to say, hey, look, I appreciate the 34 surgeries you've done to save my leg, but you need to cut it off because it's giving me too much pain. And this doctor put my leg in his lap. Not on the table where they usually put your leg in the room. He put it on his nice white coat. And he looked at it like it was a masterpiece. And I thought, wow, if he can look at my leg like this, maybe I can learn to love it too. And so the reason I say I don't believe that you have to love yourself in order for others to love you is because I know from what I've experienced that I hated myself. And it took my husband loving me to learn to love myself again. And it took my doctor loving me and my leg and accepting me before I could love myself and accept myself. And so I think sometimes you need people to love you until you can learn to love yourself. I don't think it's the other way around. I think sometimes we all need help. And the key is to not do it alone, to ask for help and to connect and know that you're not alone in your struggle.
In that moment, How did you allow that love to start coming in? Because I will say, if we don't love ourselves, if it's not there to actually embrace the love being given to us.
Well, I will tell you, when that doctor looked at my leg that way and was like, looked at it like it was a masterpiece, I thought, wow,
Mm-hmm.
if he looks at it this way, maybe I can learn to look at it that too. Every day, I started to look at it differently. And I'm not saying it was overnight. All of a sudden, I love myself and I love my leg and I love my life. It was every day. A little bit easier and a little more grace. And I'll never forget, I had a friend of mine who was like, so are you going to always wear clothes and boots and stuff to cover up all the scars on your legs? And I was like, oh, hell yeah. I will never show the scars on my leg. And I remember thinking, you know what? I'm going to go to the beach and I'm going to just go to the beach and not wear anything to cover up my leg. And I remember the first thing my husband was like, don't you want to wear your compression sock? And I was like, nope, I'm just going to go to the beach like this. And I had a lady in the elevator who messaged me or she found me on social media and she said, I saw you in the elevator and you were so kind and you made me feel so welcome. And she said, and then I looked down and I saw your leg and I didn't even realize that you had a leg that was so scarred up. And I just wanted to message you and tell you that your leg is beautiful. And I was like, wow. That she found me on Instagram and she sent me that message that she didn't even think about how my leg was scarred up or any of that she connected with me as a person. And you know what I mean? Yeah.
But allowing yourself to be that vulnerable and go there. I mean, that is, it takes courage. It takes courage to step out and do that. And when you do act in with that courage to be vulnerable in that way, the response is usually so much stronger than when we're trying to put up a facade that everything's perfect or hide these parts of ourselves that could be deemed broken or damaged or whatever that may be. I mean, I even had that with, I'm ghostwriting a book right now for a woman who had a similar experience. She was really down and out and someone sat next to her to share with them. She was walking
Wait. What did you say? You're ghostwriting a book?
Yes.
We got to talk about that. Okay.
Yes. But yeah, so she was at a breaking point and she went and did the walk of the Camino de Santiago in Spain. And she had kind of like lost all of her stuff during it. Had a bad spill, sitting on the ground, just ready to give up. Mm-hmm. Someone came up to her on a bike, sat down beside her, offered her, part of their lunch, a snack. And this is like a 500-mile trek. And went back to their bike to get something else. The husband of the woman sat next to her and they started talking. And she said, we're doing this walk because she had a horrific accident. So she's something similar to you where she was in so much pain. I don't know exactly what the accident was, but she had to do it to be able to prove to herself that she could move through anything and that she could walk through anything. And that gave my client that strength to say, I can move on. If she can move past this pain, if she can be vulnerable in this moment, I can find that strength to move on. And these people come into our lives like that woman in the elevator. I believe that they're earth angels, people sent down to us to help us in these moments and to encourage us. And in that moment, I imagine your whole perspective on everything probably shifted.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. And it's interesting that you're bringing up that conversation because I have a friend of mine who just invited me to climb Mount Kilimanjaro.
Wow.
And I want to do it. And I just messaged my oldest daughter. Well, first I asked my youngest daughter, I was like, do you want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro with me? She's like, no, Mom, I don't really do it. So I asked my oldest daughter, hey, do you want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro with me?
Mm-hmm.
She's like, I have so many questions. Like, what the hell is what she responded to? Because she's at Yale. She's going to school at Yale. She's studying medicine. But she, I think, would maybe do it with me. But I need to have, I want to do it. I want to do this climb to show others, especially with complex regional pain syndrome. Like, I was told I'd be in a wheelchair forever. Like, really? I'm not going to be in a wheelchair forever. I was told I would never be able to work again. Really? Oh, I'm going to work again, and I'll show you I'm going to work beyond what you could ever imagine. And so now I'm like, oh, and I was told, well, you'll never be able to wear shoes, or if you do, they'll have to be orthopedic shoes. So I'm like, okay, I got to find the right shoes so I can climb Mount Kilimanjaro, but that's my next goal. I just have to, right now, the only thing I can wear are a certain pair of boots because my ankle's fused and with the CRPS and all that. So I'm like, I know I could do it physically, mentally, but I can't get blisters on my feet or whatever. So I'm like, I got to figure it out. But I want to do it. I want to do it. I'll keep you posted and let you know if my daughter, my oldest daughter, I just texted her yesterday and she's like, I have so many questions. And I'm like, we got to do it.
Well, more power to you. I think in my 20s, I hiked one of the hills in Yosemite, one of the mountains in Yosemite, and I rolled my ankle on the way down. I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm good at hiking, so I don't need to do this anymore. But that's going to be a trick. Yeah. So that's amazing. How do you set your mind? Like, what you're talking about is like a mindset trick. Like, you said, no, you are not going to tell me I can't do this. No, you are not going to tell me I can't do that. Like, how do you go there? Because so many people would just be like, sorry, I can't do that.
Well, I think my whole life I've been an underdog. I mean, I was, in the dance company, I was the youngest dancer to make company, and I was always like the underdog and had to work harder to keep up with the older dancers that were always like 3 feet taller than me. You know what I mean? On the track team, I tried out for track the day before tryouts and made the track team, and I had to prove myself to I made the track team. Now let me prove to you that I can get us to district. Then growing up, I knew I wanted to get the heck out of Texas and move to LA to become a professional dancer. And I didn't really have anybody supporting me. No one saying, hey, I believe in you. Hey, you're going to do it. Hey, here's some money for you. Nothing. It was up to me. It was up to me to support myself. It was up to me to believe in myself. And I think that a lot of times, I didn't have the easiest childhood, which most of us don't. I think that pain pushes you until purpose pulls you. And purpose pulled me. And I was like driven all the way. And a month after I got to LA, I got a gig dancing with MC Hammer on a music video. And that was my little dose of, you're in the right direction. Sometimes all we need is that little like, yep, you're doing the right thing. Yep, you're doing the right thing. Yep, you're doing the right thing. But you have to work for it. You can wish for it and want it, and I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is they think they just can manifest, or they can just wish, oh, I hope I do these things. Now you got to work your ass off. And I worked my ass off. And what I mean by that is, okay, for instance, I wanted to become a professional dancer in Los Angeles. I knew that if I wanted to be a professional dancer in Los Angeles, that I had a plan where I wanted to get on scholarship at Joe Tremaine's studio called the Dance Center. So I knew I had to save up enough money to where I could go to the Dance Center and take classes every single day so they could see me in class. And then when it came time for the audition, that I could audition, and they'd be like, okay, we've seen this girl in class. We've seen her. Well, guess what? I made the audition. I was the worst one on scholarship. The worst. Like, all these other dancers were so much better than me. And Joe Tremaine really took me under his wing. And at the end of that year of scholarship, so at the end of that year, I was the only dancer that was required to take the most ballet classes, the most tap classes, the most jazz classes, because I sucked. And at the end of the year, Joe Tremaine awarded me for being the one that went from this point to this point. Like, I really, really excelled, but I worked for it. I didn't wish for it. I worked for it.
Well, I think that's where we go wrong with thinking we desire something. Oh, or if we can dream it, it's just going to come to us, or if we could visualize it enough. It's like, yes, we are creators. Yes, we are creator beings, but in that creation, there has to be action. That creation doesn't come without that action. And so you had a passion and you had a purpose, but you had to fight for it. And we have to take those steps to get there. And that's where I think, that passion really help propels us forward, because so often, people aren't going to see our dreams for us. They aren't going to support us from the outside because it's not their dreams for us. They're not living our life. So to get authentic with ourselves, coming back to that, is like, we have to be the ones to believe in ourselves, to be able to push us to achieve whatever that wild dream is that we want to achieve, whether it's being a dancer or climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Now I'm thinking back to the day of my old beauty pageant days as a kid, and I gave up because I was like, I can't be Miss America. I'm only 5'2". How am I going to be Miss America? Maybe I should have just still said I was going to do it, don't let these things, these limitations stop you.
I could totally see you being Miss America, by the way. I'm just saying.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just saying. I can see it now.
Yeah, over the hill, 40-year-old Miss America with my two little kids on my hip. There's so many times that we don't go after what we want because outside influences are either not supporting us or are not, cheering us on. And so we do have to come in and be our biggest cheerleader. And anything worth going after is not usually going to be easy.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? There's a lot of times the people that are closest to you are not going to be your biggest cheerleader. I mean, I can't tell you how many times where I've had some big things coming up. Like, even today, I just got back from this big TV interview. And my husband, he's amazing. Don't get me wrong. But he called me. He's like, where are you? And I was like, I told you I had this big TV interview. It was like in the studio, and you're in the studio and you've got cameras and you've got people and it's like a big set. And so I had all these cameras and TV and he's like, well, where are you? Well, are you going to be able to go to the barn with us for her writing lesson tonight? Like, what's going on? Like, you know what I mean? Like, he could not give a crap about any of it. You know what I mean? He's just like,
Yeah.
whatever. But I think that you have to have that belief in yourself. But I think it's also important to remember why you started, because there have been times when I've started to feel burnout, honestly. I mean, I'm just being completely real with you, where I've just been like, oh man, I'm tired. I don't know if I can keep doing this. Is it all worth it? And then I remember why I started. And I think that when you focus on why you started, you don't get burnout. It's when you forget why you started that you start to get burnout. But when you focus on why, you remember, oh yeah, this is exactly what I'm supposed to do. And it fuels the fire of what you're doing. It fuels your purpose. It fuels you to keep going and to keep waking up and to like get in the car and listen to some music and to keep going. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's what kept you going in that hospital bed.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, I think, and I think that your why can change, because my why in the hospital bed was, I wanted to get out of that bed because I wanted to be an example of resilience for my daughters. And now my why is, yes, I want to be an example of resilience for my daughters, but my why now is different. I want to show other women that they can have a voice to share their message and make an impact and cause a ripple effect. And so it's a little bit different. And I think that it's important to get in touch with yourself so you can know what your why is, and it can shift a little bit throughout the years.
Well, I think it is important that it does shift, because if we're not growing, we're not truly living. Isn't that our purpose here, is to grow and learn and evolve? So our why should shift with our growing person.
Exactly.
So where can we see you next? I know you're doing a lot of big things. I know you have your book. I know you're speaking on a lot of stages. I know you have an event coming up in April. How can we find you? How can we get in touch with you? All the good stuff.
Gosh. Oh my God. I would love if you came to see us in April. Oh my gosh. Seriously, I would love if you came in April. So we're in Dallas, April 19th and 20th. Okay, so what's so funny is like the date the hotel had was 4/20. And I was like, 4/20? Like, seriously? I'm like, sober. That's the date you got? So, okay, 4/20. So 4/20. So VIP is 4/19. The date is 4/20. I know, it's pretty crazy. Oh well, maybe it'll be easy for people to remember. But yeah, it's going to be amazing. Oh my God. Can I just tell you the speakers that are going to be?
Yes, of course.
You know. Okay. Get ready for this. Okay. Freaking John Gordon. Do you know John Gordon?
I sure do.
Okay. He is actually like, I guess I will say my idol. Okay. As far as speaking. He's speaking at my event. Like, seriously, it freaks me out. John Gordon. Like, John freaking Gordon. 26 best-selling books. Okay, we have all of his books. Ben Newman. Rachel Luna, who is freaking amazing.
Yeah. I know. Yes.
Rudy Ricksteins, who, if you don't know him, I've got to introduce you because you will love him. He's one of my best friends. Henry Amar.
I don't know
one
him
of my
either.
best friends. If you don't know him, oh my God, I got to introduce you. Amazing. Like, no kidding. These people are amazing. But not only that, so it's not that I just provide a stage for these amazing speakers, but I also allow all the new mastermind members to get up and give a mini TED style talk. So all my new,
Oh my goodness.
yeah, that's what I do for them. Like, I'm like, you know what? I want to teach you how to speak, but no, I'm not just going to do that. I'm going to give you a platform. And then they'll be able to go, oh, I shared the stage with John Gordon. You know what I mean?
That's amazing.
I want to give them a start. I want to give them a platform. I want to give them the space that they deserve because they're freaking amazing. So yeah, I'm super, super excited about it. I've been planning it since last March, and it's April 19th and 20th, and I do hope you can come. Oh my gosh, I would love to see you, and I would love to introduce you to everyone. Like,
my goodness.
you've got to meet these other speakers. Like, you would so love them, and they've got huge podcasts. So
yes,
we got to connect. Okay.
Yes.
Sometimes I forget that we're doing an interview, and I just feel like we're talking. You know, that's probably why I started crying. That's probably why I started crying earlier.
No, I love it. I love that. I love the openness. I love that you're willing to go there. And yeah, those are some amazing speakers. I know all the people you're talking about. Wow. How amazing. What a great event. That you are amazing too. And I so appreciate you taking your time today to talk to me. And I'll put all the information for your show in the show notes. And I would love to be there too. I'm not too far. I'm in Tennessee now. So we're just hop, skip, and a jump away on a flight. So maybe we'll be able to make it come out there.
Okay, I hope so. Well, thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amberly, and we'll talk soon.
Okay.
And that's it for today's Intentional Living with Courtney Myers. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you, Amberly Lago, for such a beautiful, open, and vulnerable conversation about pushing through our pain, finding our purpose, and showing up in service of others so that we can really live a truly fulfilled life. If you want to get in touch with Amberly, go to her event or follow along with her. I'll put all the information in the show notes below. And as always, you can find Intentional Living with Courtney Myers and Intentional Media on our website at CourtneyMyers.com. That's where you'll find our books, our courses, and everything else we have going on. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.